Let us talk about bank feeds. Bank feeds is one of the ways you actually do enter data into QuickBooks. If you do not write checks or write your expenses beforehand in QuickBooks, then the quickest way to enter your transaction is through bank feeds. To get to bank feeds, on your side navigation bar, go to banking. That will bring you right to the bank feeds. It will bring you right here. So if you have multiple accounts, that will show up here. If you have not set up an account or there's an account you need to add, click on Add Account, and then it will tell you to enter your password and your username to connect. First of all, it will tell you to look for your bank. So you select your bank, and then when you select your bank, it will tell you to enter your password and username, and you go through your bank security system. If everything clears, it connects to your bank and it tells you it's all done. We're not going to go ahead and do that now. It's a very easy process. QuickBooks works you through it. So once you enter the bank, you have transactions downloaded and it will show up here. And to enter transactions, there are a couple of things you need to do. First of all, I recommend that you at least acknowledge every transaction because bank feeds is one of the best way to review the transactions that go through your bank. And sometimes, depending on what type of business you have, you could have like hundreds of transactions in a month. And if you're not going through each transaction, you could have some transactions that you never authorize and you never get to know if you're not really looking through to see what's coming through your account. That's the first reason I recommend going through each transaction just to check how valid they are. The second reason you want to at least look at a transaction is because you want to make sure it's been categorized correctly. So now let's take a look at this from Amazon.com. So we see that a transaction downloaded. So the first thing we want to do is here, we want to make sure we enter the vendor's name. It's good practice to always enter the name. Then this is probably going to be office supplies. We put the office expenses. If the vendor is not in there, it will tell you to enter the name. So we put for office expenses. If you want to put a memo, you put a memo in there. And then it will tell you, we'll set Amazon to office expenses from now on. If this is okay, you can click yes. If it's not okay, you can edit the settings and leave uncategorized. That way, when a new download comes from Amazon.com, it's not going to categorize it as office expense. So here we'll cancel because we want all Amazon transactions to be classified as office expenses. So we click add. Another way we can set up the bank rules is when we can actually go up here and we can settle the bank rules so it can pre-recognize some transactions for us so we don't have to do as much entry. So we can say new rule, and then we can call the rule name Amazon for money out, which is money that's been paid out, all bank accounts. If the bank text contains Amazon, we want it to be, it's an expense type. We want the vendor to be set to Amazon, and we want this to be office expense. Also that way, and if there's a memo we want to enter the memo. We don't want to automatically add to my books because, like I said, I don't like that just because I like to review every single transaction that comes through. One, because there might be an error. Two, it might be an unauthorized charge. And three, it's kind of a good point of entry to check what's going on in your book and click save. So any transaction now that comes with the name Amazon.com is automatically going to be entered like with vendors and the name. So I don't have to re-enter it. So when you see, so a transaction like this, it means it hasn't been matched with anything. So you actually have to go in and do that. So let's do a rule for this. So whenever this Lara lamination comes in, we can go ahead and recategorize it. The best thing to do is to look at the bank details. Don't go with what QuickBooks says because that's what the bank categorizes it at. So let's go ahead and add a bank rule for that. So we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll do new rule. The rule name is, we'll just call it, doesn't like the apostrophe. Bank text contains Lara's lamination, its expense, payee's name. So that way it can automatically enter that for us. We'll add it if it's not in there. And categories office expense again. So let's go ahead and put that in there. If we want a memo, we can put that in there. So that automatically enters in our books. And so now when we go back to banking, that should be, you see how it's marked with the rule? And that way, look at all the data has been entered for me. I don't have to do any data entry. I'm just checking to see if this transaction is valid, and I can just go ahead and add it. When we already pre-enter transaction in QuickBooks, like let's say we write checks from QuickBooks, QuickBooks will ask us to match the transaction. Now, if the transaction is readily entered, be sure to match it, because if you don't match it, it creates a duplicate entry. So like all these transactions have been pre-entered, so all we have to do is just match it.